Hey guys, thanks for joining me again. So some of you might be wondering, I have a C on my transcript. What are my chances of getting into dental school? So today I'll be going over my experience getting C's in undergrad and what I have learned from it. But to start off, I must say, if you have a C, that does not mean that you should quit on becoming a dentist if that's what you're really passionate about. While I feel like it's avoidable and it's certainly possible to get straight A's in your undergraduate coursework, I do think that there are so many factors that play into a role that you should not stress too much about getting a C. In my personal experience, I got 2 C's during one of my semesters in my freshman year, and that brought my GPA down to a 3.17. And while that was really hard for me to come back from, and it was kind of like a moral blow, I do think that it was a good thing because it really helped me to learn and grow. To give you some background, in high school, I never really studied. I'm actually kind of surprised that I got into college with the grades I had in high school. And so when I was in my undergrad, I do feel like I didn't really know how to study. I didn't understand what it took to understand material, how to memorize material. And so it took me quite a bit of learning to figure that out. And whether you're in that same boat or not, it is a good opportunity to assess your learning. Getting a C doesn't mean you're dumb or that you can't be a dentist. It simply means that there's something indicating that you need to change some type of habit. Whether that means studying more or just more efficiently or using different methods, or if it's indicative that you're not really understanding the material and that you need to take time to understand it. Depending on who you are, I feel like it can be a good thing to get a C in your undergrad. Now, if you can avoid it from the start, that's great. If you can get A's and B's or straight A's, that's good. But there are many people out there who are coming from different circumstances, so that's not going to be the norm for everyone. So for those of you who have gotten a C and are thinking, what do I do now? It kind of depends on your school's policy. I know some schools allow you to retake classes and replace grades, while most schools will allow you to retake and then have an average of the 2 grades. It really depends on what you want to do going forward. So for example, in my experience, I got a C in Chem 105, which is the first inorganic chemistry class, and PD Bio 120. This is like the entry-level biology class. Now at my school, they did take the average of the 2, and so that was kind of a factor in deciding on whether I was going to retake classes. Since my course load each semester was already fairly high, with it being around 15 to 18 credit hours a semester, I didn't really have much wiggle room with how many classes I could retake. So I figured I would retake Chem 105 since that would become important later on in chemistry classes. And I also figured since I'll have taken so many biology classes by the end of my undergrad that it wasn't too important that I retake biology. Plus Chem 105 is worth 4 credits, and I think my PD Bio class was worth 2 credits. So these are all things that you really need to consider. Now, if you have all the time in the world, which most of us don't, and you can take as many semesters as you want, then retake them all if that really floats your boat, if that's what makes you happy, and if that will allow you to understand all the material. But really, you should just be focusing on how you can affect your GPA the most by retaking classes. So as you can imagine, retaking Chem 105 and getting an A in it will have a bigger impact on my GPA than taking PD Bio 120 and getting an A in it. Now that being said, I do feel like I have to backtrack. One class isn't gonna make or break your GPA. It's all of your classes. Especially if you're a freshman, I feel like this is something I didn't really get as a freshman, that your GPA will change dramatically based on your classes. It's not until later in your undergrad that it'll become a little harder to change it. But just know that if you get a C in a class, doesn't necessarily mean you even have to look at retaking, depending on the class you got a C in. Now, if you got a C in a class like organic chemistry or biochemistry, and you haven't already been accepted, that might be more important to retake. But like, let's say you get a C in psychology, chances are it's not going to be too big of a deal. I am not encouraging getting C's. Obviously, getting A's and B's or straight A's is probably the best thing you could do. But then again, I understand that's not within reach for everyone. Now, for those of you who might not know, there are actually 2 GPAs they use to assess your application. One is your science GPA, which those are the classes that have chemistry, biology, physics in their title. And then there's a non-science GPA, which is just an overall GPA, and that's probably what you're seeing if you can check your GPA before you graduate. So that's just something to be aware of, because if you do get a lot of C's in your science courses, you can't just make that up with your normal GPA, because your science GPA will be really low, and they do look at both. That's not to say that you should quit on being a dentist or getting into dental school. That is just to say that you will probably have to retake more classes, which again, in your situation, might be a good thing. Now, for those of you who get a C in a class, don't think, oh, you're dumb, or you don't belong in dental school, or any other negative thought. I mean, it all happens. It happens to the best of us, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses. You'll find throughout your college experience that there are certain classes that you'll do amazing in and people won't do as well in, or there are classes that you won't do as well in and the people who didn't do as well in the other classes will do better in. I think that's just because our minds work a little differently, and so some things come easier than other things. Now, for those of you who might hear this and think, no, there's no way I can get a C and get into dental school, I feel like I am enough proof of that, just because not only did I get into dental school, but I was invited to interview at half the dental schools I applied to, which again shows that schools aren't just looking at your inorganic chemistry grade. What they want to see is a story in your GPA and see that you are learning, that you are trying, and that you are doing things to better and further your learning. So don't get too caught up in it. It won't be healthy in the long run. It'll just be a burden. If you do what I did, I kind of use that as motivation, where I think, well, I got a C here, but I've learned from that. I was able to retake that class and get an A, which means it's possible for me to learn to keep learning and do better in my other classes. Because there will be times where you get poor grades, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep going. If anything, that'll just show that you have a determination to achieve what you dream of doing, which is becoming a dentist. Use it as a humbling experience. Maybe you just need to reassess things. The answer will be different for everyone, but the important thing is that you use this experience to grow. And I suggest you think outside the box. Maybe the issue isn't learning the material, maybe it's a test-taking strategy that you're not using. When the exam comes around, you have so much anxiety that you can't take it, or you can't think well while you're taking it. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, because I feel like a lot of people after the fact look at questions and think, wow, I got that wrong, but I know that. I don't understand how I got that wrong, or how I didn't realize it in that moment when I was taking the test. Just try different things, don't be too stressed, and I promise if you're persistent, it'll work out for you. But that's all I have for you. I hope you're not too stressed when it comes to grades. They are important, but there's more to life than just studying. And just know that, while this might not be popular to say, realize that if you get a C in a class, that means you were right more than you were wrong still on those tests. So while it's not the ideal, you are learning, you are growing, and it's part of the process. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I will be leaving my email in the description. But if anything, just take a breather, and enjoy this summer even though we are in quarantine, and be ready to study hard for the fall and winter semester.